Welcome to the 68th reading of my memoir, The Innocence of Guilt. Our baby arrives. December 1st passed and Brian had not renegade on his promise to try for a baby. New Year's Eve and we were all set to go to a party, but I came down with something resembling a bad case of food poisoning, which turned out to be something that needed no cure. I didn't know it right away. I missed one period, then two, and I still didn't dare to believe I was pregnant because I wanted it so much. I secretly sent a urine sample away for testing and gave my work phone number for the result, even though we'd had a phone installed in our flat. I didn't want Brian to know how anxious I had become. I knew how silly my fears and doubts would seem. Only after the test proved positive did I see a doctor who also confirmed the news. My due date, August 29th, 1969. I found it difficult during the first 4 months to completely comprehend the miracle happening inside my body. At 3 months, I told Mum, and Brian told his parents, but I didn't tell anybody else until after the first tiny flutters sometime during the 4th month. As I didn't have to wear maternity clothes until the 6th month, Mrs. Potts expressed shock when I announced the news. I told her I would work for the next 3 months, so she'd have plenty of time to find my replacement. I saw my doctor once a month and attended private antenatal classes offered by the National Childbirth Trust. This organization encouraged natural childbirth and breastfeeding, slowly making a comeback amongst educated white women. My only physical complaints were of tiredness at the end of a working day, as by the time I arrived home via 2 buses and a tube ride, picking up groceries on the way, it was often 7 p.m. At the end of the 7th month, I switched from seeing my GP to seeing a doctor in St. Stephen's Hospital, a short walk around the corner in Fulham Road. Routine procedure for any pregnancy, but extremely fortunate in mine. Blood and urine tests were done, and then I saw the doctor. He took my blood pressure, then looked at me rather sternly and said, "Have you been getting regular checkups?" "Of course I have," I replied, a little indignant that he would think I was irresponsible. He told me I had dangerously high blood pressure and protein in my urine. I didn't know why my GP hadn't picked those up. "You have toxemia," he said. "You need to stop working and have complete bed rest. Do you have anybody at home who can look after you?" "My husband can do the shopping and cooking." "Are you sure about that? Because if not, I'd like to admit you." The last thing I wanted was to spend the next 2 months of my pregnancy in hospital, so I assured him I would quit my job and stay in bed. He also told me I had Rhesus negative blood. I already knew this from the one time I donated blood, but I didn't know how it could affect a baby I carried. He said it rarely caused problems in a first pregnancy, and I could have a gamma globulin anti-D injection within 2 days of giving birth to prevent any problems with a second baby. The risk then of my blood developing antibodies against a baby with positive blood would be small. All these medical facts disturbed me, just more things for me to worry about. Brian said he'd do all he could to help me and accepted the need for me to stop working. After all, it was only a couple of months earlier than expected. I phoned Mrs. Potts and told her I wouldn't be coming back to work on doctor's orders. She did not take it well. She argued with me that the doctor probably exaggerated my situation and I'd be fine. I stuck to my decision, though, I didn't go back. I didn't fully comprehend the seriousness of my condition. I allowed Brian to do the shopping and cook the meals, but with him gone all day, I hopped out of bed and did little jobs around the flat. I also went out to the antenatal classes, although that tested the limits, as I had to catch a bus and then walk some distance to the centre. Once Mum knew I was ordered strict bed rest, she travelled to London on the train, all by herself, something she'd never done before, to visit me. She found me propped up in bed, behaving myself for once, and seemed very concerned, asking if I received proper care from my doctor. I assured her I did. I didn't want her fussing over me. Poor Mum. The visit didn't end up as pleasant as it could have been. Soon after she arrived, I had a massive nosebleed, causing her to panic. She wanted me to call Brian and make him come home and take me to the hospital, but I refused. I couldn't stand being helpless before her. I'd worked hard at turning myself into the independent daughter who didn't need her mother for anything anymore. Once the nosebleed stopped, I asked if she'd care to see my collection of baby clothes. One by one, I passed them to her for inspection: little vests, nightgowns, cardigans, booties, blankets, etc. When she saw the little plastic pants, she said, "You're not putting those awful things on your baby, are you?" "Of course I am," I replied. "Everyone uses plastic pants today, Mum." I gave her a dismissive look, as if she spoke from somewhere in the dark ages. Whatever Mothercare sold in their shops suited me, and I wasn't budging. Their catalogue was my Bible in those days, but Mum insisted on plastic pants being the cause of nappy rash. The entire visit was ruined by her insistence on arguing with me, as if I needed aggravation to increase my already elevated blood pressure. I refused to meet her halfway and consider her advice. My visits to the hospital resulted in more and more pills. They soon added up to 13 different pills every day, and I lost track of what they were all for. If swallowing all those pills, though, kept me sleeping in my own bed in familiar surroundings, I would agree to bottles and bottles of them. According to the Childbirth Trust midwife, we enlightened women must be assertive with hospital doctors when it came to the custom of being automatically drugged up during labour. Firm with our requests to have our husbands present, and also fight the stigma against breastfeeding. Insist on having our babies with us beside our beds at all times, not in the hospital nursery, where they would no doubt be bottle-fed. It sounded as if we were all called to be in a battle against an enemy set out to destroy the very thing we wanted, a beautiful natural event we could fully participate in with joy. The hospital doctor did look shocked when I asked him if Brian could be with me throughout the labour and delivery. He sighed and said, "I suppose he can be present if he wants to be masochistic." Brian said, "That's a funny thing to say, but he's not putting me off. I'm determined to be there." My baby hadn't been very active in the womb, but 2 weeks or so before the due date, I became concerned. I feared that the precious life inside me had died. Not until I poked my abdomen for the tiniest of flutters did I believe otherwise. I checked into the hospital as ordered on the evening of the 28th, in preparation for an induction the following day. A panic attack set in, and nausea swept over me. I asked to be left alone to sleep, and curtains were drawn around my bed, shutting me off from all activity in the busy maternity ward. Never mind, I thought, as I concentrated on my breathing to calm myself down. Tomorrow I'll be a mother. Drugs kept me sedated for most of Friday morning until I sensed the urge to bear down. I opened my eyes and saw Brian wearing a green hospital gown march into the room with our Scrabble game under his arm. He'd been denied access during the first stage. I hope he isn't planning on a game, because I don't think this is the moment. Obviously, the nurses didn't think so either. As the game was tossed to one side, Brian grabbed one of my feet, a nurse grabbed the other. I was urged to push, and Brian was told to not let go, as I almost slid off the table into the wall. No helpful stirrups to stop me from sliding forward, and exhausted from the effects of the drugs, no strength left for pushing. After 2 hours of effort, an episiotomy eased my baby into the world. The words, "It's a girl," gave me no joy as her grey, lifeless body dangled before me. Time stood suspended until her colour gradually turned to pink, and she let out a cry. No opportunity to hold her close and kiss her. I glimpsed a little white-sheeted bundle with a blood-smeared face whisked out the door in a trolley. My precious baby gone. The doctor explained to Brian the calcification of the placenta. Completely white, it sat in a bowl within line of my sight. He said our baby hadn't been getting much oxygen through it. Did that mean she was dead after all? 2 days later, I woke up in bed in a private room. The realization slowly dawned on me that I'd given birth to a little baby girl. I tried to move my dead weight of a body, believing myself to be paralyzed. "I want to see my baby. Please, someone, bring my baby." My cries brought a nurse into the room, and she asked what I wanted, as if the whole maternity unit didn't know by then. "Is my baby dead?" I dared to ask. "No, your baby isn't dead. She's in the nursery," she said, in a calm, resigned voice. "I want to see her. Bring her to me, please," I replied, with nothing but desperation in mine. It seemed forever before she returned. I lay there helpless, not entirely convinced she'd told me the truth. Not even Brian there to tell me what had happened. The nurse came back and helped me sit up in bed against the propped-up pillows. In my arms she placed the tiny bundle of my baby and promptly left the room. I could barely move to adjust my uncomfortable position. It wasn't any great relief or pleasure. So afraid I would drop my precious baby, I no sooner had her than I called out to the nurse to take her back. Brian's long-awaited visit explained things. My blood pressure hadn't lowered after the birth, and I'd been kept heavily sedated. He wrote letters to everybody, especially to the Reverend Bailey, confessing he now believed in miracles because of our miracle baby, all 5 pounds 11 ounces of her. The doctor had anticipated a stillbirth, but hadn't wanted to tell us. We were thankful he decided to keep the prognosis to himself. Brian chose her name, Karen Julie. I liked the name. We had decided beforehand that if we had a boy, I would choose the name, and if we had a girl, he would. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe, like, or comment on this reading, and hopefully you will tune in to the next one. Bye for now.